Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. I welcome you to this All India Toy Fair session on the role of augmented reality and virtual reality in electronic toys. It's good to see some really people who are at the cutting edge of technology and prominent industry players in more intelligent toys involving augmented reality and virtual reality. Most of all, I'd like to welcome Madam Alka Arora, Joint Secretary, Ministry of MSME, Government of India, with whom we have had many interactions on behalf of CI and many other fronts. She has been a guide and mentor, handholding us and handholding a variety of different industry segments all the time. She is looking at the interests of micro and small enterprises, helping them to grow, removing obstacles, and guiding us on the various ways in which we can take advantage of government incentives to accelerate the growth that we all need. We look forward to your thought leadership and views in the discussion today, Madam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Rajendra Kumar, Additional Secretary of METI, would be joining us, as I mentioned, at about 3 o'clock after we finish the previous engagement. Dr. Rajendra Kumar is a professional person in many different fields, including international economic development, public policy, ICT, and many years of 27 years of experience in the Indian Administrative Services, where he's now reached a level of Additional Secretary. More about him when he joins us, and we look forward to his inputs also. The panel we have today have two very distinguished practitioners who have actually done something and are not talking from theory like the rest of us are. These are people who can inspire us with their vision on how they would take the whole concept forward, and we look forward to hearing from them. Dr. Sneha Vaswani is co-founder and CEO of Miko, which is a robotics company, robotic toys company. Mr. Tushar Amin, co-founder of Smartivity Labs, who's got some very, very creative products in the market now. Many of you will recall that toys were identified by Honorable Prime Minister as one of the areas that India should pay attention to and help it to grow. Of course, the first reaction of most people like myself would have been that are we talking of craftspeople who will make wooden toys or things like that? But slowly, as the thinking has evolved, it has been realized that there is a scope for us to leverage our special skills in technology, IT, and these areas to make cutting-edge toys which have greater value and take advantage of our USPs in India. If I might take half a minute to say this, when my eldest son was only probably 5 years old, that was good 25 years ago, I'd gone to the US and one of our friends gifted us a small robotic toy called Casey. And all that was robotic about it was that you had a cassette that you put in and he would have different expressions on his face and blink his eyes and wave his arms as he talked. But even that was fascinating enough to make it one of his best friends. And when I see some of the things which are being done by the two panelists, I'm reminded of that, except that now we're a quantum leap ahead as we are in so many other fields. So slowly but surely, augmented and virtual reality is taking over, impacting many industries and businesses. And the toy market too has embraced this in making innovative toys that are educational as well as interactive and good for the children. The toys created by them create a link between the real and digital world. Children today need to be exposed to that right from a very tender age, so that as they grow up, they're comfortable with technology. They will adopt digital technology. And I think there is no dispute there's no difference in opinion in anywhere in India, especially or within the government, that the digital way is the way forward. We have to prepare our next coming generation to be as comfortable with it as we are with pen and paper. And I think that is the first familiarization with digital tech, if it is done at a young age, as we can do through these toys, will be a very important step in that direction. Now, it makes the process of learning not only innovative, and I looked at some of the toys on the website of both the panelists, but it develops their skills both in scientific and analytical thinking. and that would itself further influence the growth of this market segment for the industry as a whole. On the other side, having such sophisticated toys will bring about, like we were discussing a few minutes before the start of this discussion, the role of organizations like BIS, which will help create a higher level of technology and quality in the toys that we are making in India. The growth of demand for smart toys is presently driven mainly by the rise in disposable income amongst the middle income group and the technological developments in creative and interactive toys. But going ahead, as the overall economic well-being of the country increases, which I think is what we're all talking about, we talk of $5 trillion economy, if not in 3 years, in 4 years, this will trickle down and it will create a demand that will be more widespread throughout the country and will definitely create a demand for smart toys for all kinds of purposes. Now, with that, I would like to invite Madam Alka Arora ji to deliver her special address and give us more guidance on where we can take this effort that has been launched by the Government of India and with MSME being supported particularly by Madam Alka Arora and her ministry. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Sehgal. Good afternoon, everybody. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this virtual knowledge session, which is basically focusing on augmented reality and virtual reality in electronic toys. The journey of the toy has been a very interesting one. All of us have grown with toys. Each of us in our childhood has had a favorite toy, whether it was a soft toy or a doll or any kind of electronic toys. And as we all know, electronic toys were the toys. Some years ago, as he mentioned for his son, so would I remember that getting a doll which could skip for my daughter from somewhere, when one traveled abroad or something. So what today, after our honorable Prime Minister mentioned in his Mann Ki Baat that, we have all the ministries, some nearly 15 ministries have been working together. And we are now going to see the light of the day on the 27th when the virtual toy fair gets inaugurated. So it has been a long journey of these past 4 months where the ministries have worked in sync with each other and tried to identify the crux of the thing remains is that this is industry which has been very dear to everyone, if I can use that word, as whether you're a child or an adult, because now there are certain games and toys where you don't think that I should be a 10-year-old, that then only I can use this. So it's gaming, and toys have reached another level. And when we talk about the MSMEs, we have been on different platforms been talking that MSMEs can do this. They are the part of the value chain. They have to become a part of the global value chain. So without getting into this, that the MSMEs play a very important role, and we have different sectors which when we started this journey, we clearly demarcated that yes, there are these clusters, the toy clusters, which are doing the traditional clusters, and then there is another segment which is catering to the other kind of toys, and especially when we talk about the electronic toys. The market, as has been studied by all of us, and we have people who are in the business, and the Toy Association, of course, who was also supposed to be here today. All of us know that we are just we are doing a very minuscule business of the total 1.5 billion, if that is the correct figure which is estimated, and we are just 0.5% of the global market share. And what has been observed is that there have been cheap imports in the country which have taken away a lot of our own business. And what happens is here, toy is again a field of imagination. That is what I have always felt, why a certain particular toy looks like a particular way. It is somebody's imagination, and it is all about the art of storytelling and how it is perceived by the customer, who can be either a child of 2 years or 4 years, or you can now take it to whatever age you can want it to be. Like, even I think at 60-65 also we want to be a part of the gaming this thing. And that is when we really need to work on our design element. That is what I have always felt, that somewhere, if the design is not acceptable to the customer, and the customer can be as demanding as a child of a 5-year-old child, because if he or she doesn't like the toy, the parent can do nothing about it. So the experience of playing with the toy, and holding that toy in your hand, and also the safety of the customer, because many of our toys, like the Chennapatnam toys and all, they are all this thing. If we have to take them to the international level, the colors which we are using have to be saved, the edges have to be saved, the softness, the wood which is used. So there is it's just not about a toy. It's actually the product is very technical if you look at the whole thing, because why the arms move, how the arms move, how the legs should move. So it's in fact, it's just not that, when we just dismiss it, even for that matter, a soft toy, because if the child is holding the toy close to his or her, and especially the babies and all, we have to have that, what is the product which you're using, with the material, the raw material which is being used for the soft toy. How safe are the eyes, because there are times when the child will put things in his or her mouth. So it's like a science again. So now when we are talking about the electronic toys, I would be happy to tell the August gathering here, and also when we relay this to the other August gathering, which will be looking at these and hearing these sessions, that MSMEs have come a long way, but the path is yet, though we are defining the path, but yes, we all have to hold hands and walk on this path. So we have 18 technology centers which are already under the banner of the ministry, and they are all working on, many of them have been doing good work, and many of them have geared up, because if we have to take the toy industry to another level, we have to also work on the capacity building of the people who will be working in the industry. So with the toy industry, we have been working on the courses which will be and especially in the electronics area, because what is the need of the hour, what is the machinery which will be used, and next is what is going to be the raw material which will be used, and how do we work on getting the raw material at a cheaper cost. It goes without saying that they have to meet the standards. So the education on, again, courses on what are the standards. We are also working on, if they have to go to whichever countries, what kind of export is, and every country has their standards. So that also we are looking into, though BIS and this thing is a topic which is being looked after by another ministry, but to take the MSMEs to another level, that is also being looked into by our technology centers, and our DIs which are there in the field. All of them have been assigned with holding these courses, and at least in this year itself, 2 to 3 courses are being held in various districts, that we educate the MSMEs basically how to do it. And in this toy fair, nearly more than 1,000 units are participating from different ministries. So from the MSME ministry also, nearly 300 units are participating, and they have all been helped for their videography and photography. So that itself is a first step, because ultimately if you're producing something, then to get to the marketing also is one level. That we are holding hands with them and hoping that this virtual fair becomes the first step, where we are giving them the experience that they can market their products. Coming to the topic which we are discussing today is the virtual reality and augmented reality. I personally feel, this is like, taking storytelling another level, where we are able to give the customer a visual experience, that this is a world which you are entering. And sometimes it's a surreal world, because you if you're playing for many hours, that you start believing that you are that character. And there, I know of people who have been sitting in a chair for 12 hours. So is the charm of this area, that you are playing, and you can play across continents, that there is no time zone. And it is like a bond which people are having with each other. And it gives you a very different kind of experience. And also, to the toy makers, my request is that, uh, as Mr. Sehgal also mentioned, that the technology is changing day by day, and the children are trying to, we need to get them a hold as early as possible. That now, during the COVID period, education has gone online, something which none of us ever thought that you could study everything online, whether it's going for 4 hours or 5 hours. So the entire experience is very different, because when you read from a book and wrote with a pen and paper, then slowly move to the computers, we are typing, and your thought process and your brain starts getting attuned to something like this. So during these sessions, we have realized that pedagogy, and the way the toys and the different mediums which we can use in education, and especially the AR, this will give them a different kind of experience. And what we need to do is that create an atmosphere, so that the feel of that world also starts coming, because till now you were looking at it two-dimensional. Now you're opening a world of three-dimensional. I still remember the movie Jumanji when it had come many years ago, and when you moved into that forest, or these other movies which had come, so it was like the first time all of us were getting that kind of experience. So I also feel that this will give the customers more awareness of, and the experience when they're buying a product. And we can also take marketing to another level, because you are creating an environment where the customer before buying can experience a product. And also we can maybe prolong the life of a product, because we can have these series, maybe not like the iPhone, that before one is really this thing, the other one is already you're hoping and planning to buy the next one. But maybe it could be like a story, that okay, this is this, and then the next one comes. So from our side, our technology centers, and we have IDMI in Mumbai, which is doing fantastic work on these mediums. And we have spoken to the toy industry, and they will be working very closely with them. And our other technology centers also are gearing up to help. And somewhere I feel that the MSMEs, yes, they can do the bigger product also, but if they start with the smaller parts also, they can become a part of the value chain also. So I, with my limited knowledge of AR and VR, I would now like to hear what the experts have to say. And thank you so much for having me here. And I wish the toy industry a great success, and the coming fair also to be a mega success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much for your very broad description of what the potential is and what are the areas which we can cover through intelligent toys. At this point, I also want to welcome Dr. Rajendra Kumar, Additional Secretary in METI, who has joined us precisely at 3 o'clock as promised by him. Thank you, sir. Dr. Rajendra Kumar has over 27 years of experience in the IAS. And like all people in IAS, it's a very wide-ranging areas that he has covered during this. He's a professional for international economic development. He's an expert in public policy. He's also had experience in ICT for development and e-governance. And I think all that makes it, and his present role in METI, make him a very interesting person. We would like to hear his views on how we can use technology, virtual reality, and augmented reality in developing electronic toys, not only for India, but for the world, and what assistance his ministry, METI, can give to all of us and how they can inspire us to work in that direction. So Dr. Rajendra Kumar, we'd like to hear from you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sehgal. Good afternoon to all the speakers and all the participants in this panel. I'm happy to present here on this in this event. So as was mentioned earlier by the Joint Secretary in the MSME Ministry, the Indian toy industry has a long way to go in terms of the stage at which we currently are. So let me begin from that point of view. If we really see the state of the industry today in India, we are only a very marginal player at the global scale. we have less than 1% of the global market share. And even within India, we probably meet just about 1/4 of the domestic demand. And the rest, as was mentioned, comes from our bigger neighbor. So that's the state of the affairs today. And especially when we talk about the electronic toys, the topic of discussion for this event, there we have even lower share. Probably we are just close to almost nothing in terms of having our own domestic capabilities in manufacturing electronic toys. And even in that space, when we talk about the advanced level toys that employ the latest emerging technologies, that is AR, VR, etc., there we are almost negligible. We are nowhere to be seen. So that's the state of the affairs in India, and that should give us a lot of food for thought as to what we should be doing. So let me briefly touch upon that aspect in terms of what we can do, what policies we should be implementing, what partnerships we can forge with the industry, and how we can take this forward, not only for a bigger share of domestic market, but also how we can become more significant players at the global level. So let me just talk about these two things in the time that we have. So when we talk about the domestic capabilities, as we're all aware, in terms of the electronic sector, we are way behind the frontier levels in manufacturing in electronics, even though under the umbrella program of Digital India for the last 6 years now, we have launched very concerted efforts to address that gap. And we have seen very significant progress in terms of developing our own capabilities in electronics manufacturing. And today we have come a long way, I must say, and we all know that. We are definitely doing well in assembling several high-tech gadgets, even though in component manufacturing we lag behind. And unless we develop that ecosystem, I think it would be difficult to make a real headway in electronic toy manufacturing. So what we should aim at is not just the assembling, but also the manufacturing of the components and the chipsets that go into these toys in terms of manufacturing. So we must develop that ecosystem which can address this critical gap of local manufacturing, local assembly of the components for making these high-tech toys. So that's one area where we should really focusing upon. And that's where the role of my ministry comes, MeitY, which has a very well thought of and very well implemented scheme for encouraging Make in India program in electronic sector, and the impact we have seen in this domain. We also are promoting the startup ecosystem in emerging technologies. And that's where I think will come the next thrust for developing domestic capabilities for electronic toy manufacturing. We currently have 22 centers of excellence being run across the entire country, which we are running with the help of the industry partners, where in different domains of these emerging technologies, we are encouraging startups and MSMEs to really come on board and do the R&D, do the productization, and bring it to industry for manufacturing. We have a specific center of excellence which is focused on AR and VR in all kinds of domains. And toys, of course, is one of the domains where we are encouraging these startups to really focus upon. We are providing them with assistance in form of funding, in form of mentorship, and in form of access to markets to really ensure that they can succeed on their own in terms of their own capabilities for innovation in this very challenging market. So that's one area where we have made really concerted efforts in the last few years to improve the domestic capabilities. and ensure that we can meet not only the domestic demand, but also we can enable these MSMEs and startups to also start exporting. As was mentioned earlier, we have a very growing economy where the income levels are rising, and we have the vision to also achieve the goal of $1 trillion digital economy in the next 5 years, which would be almost 20% of the overall GDP at that point of time. So that requires a huge push towards digitalization in almost all sectors and all domains. And that's where I think we really need to ensure that our industry can measure up to that standard. And programs like Industry 4.0, which is under focus area of my ministry, we are really pushing hard with all the industry partners to mainstream the adoption of emerging technologies in their own domains. So this is where I think our efforts must be focused upon in the coming years, through which we can hope to not only create domestic for electronic toys, but also we can hope to become competitive internationally to be able to export. In this entire endeavor, let me also briefly mention about a couple of other schemes that we are launching. As some of you may be aware, we have now embarked upon a program for a national scheme on AI, artificial intelligence, which again I think is a major domain where the toy manufacturing can really scale up and they can adopt this. And that's the next level of technology adoption for toys. When we talk about AR, VR, we can't talk about in isolation. It is a whole basket of the emerging technology which we need to think of as the ecosystem where these gadgets or these toys can really be used. So when we talk about the fields like AR, VR, AI, etc., we have a major role to play in terms of implementing schemes, in terms of forging partnerships with the industry and startups, so that as an ecosystem we can grow our domestic capabilities. When we talk about from where we are going to get the talents, that's where I think the role of our academic institutions, they become important. All our startups and MSMEs we are getting from our academic entities across the entire country. Even from tier 2 colleges, we are seeing good response where we are getting good talent who have that spirit of entrepreneurship to really bring new ideas to the table, bring these ideas to industry for implementation, and then succeed in the wider market. So we need to focus upon this entire ecosystem when we talk about improving our own domestic capabilities in toy making, and also for benefiting our local industry. So we are willing to work with the industry partners. I'm sure they are part of this event, this entire conference, and with industry organizations like CI, etc. We are definitely open to forging any partnerships to really bring the benefits of these technologies to the toy industry and to industry in general. So let me conclude at this point of time by wishing all the very best to this event. In fact, this is probably the first time in many years that I have seen an event focused on the toys. Normally we see focus on industry in general, MSMEs in general, or the large industry in general, or IT industry in general. But toy industry, this sector, has not really caught the attention of the policymakers in the way that we should have seen earlier, especially when we talk about very minuscule share of the Indian manufacturers. So this should have come to notice earlier, but nevertheless, I mean, it's the right time to really talk about how we can improve our own capabilities and really benefit our local manufacturing ecosystem. So let me wish all the very best to this event, all the very best to the toy manufacturers. And I would really place my appreciation on record for organizing this event to the ministry and to the industry partner. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar. Thank you, madam. I think, Dr. Kumar, it's good that you outlined so many schemes, which and ways in which you are, as a ministry, trying to promote toys in the right direction, what support you can give. And of course, what Madam Arora also mentioned in this regard. I'm sure with the sensitivity that the government has shown to this toys as a potential for India to make its own mark and first meet its own needs. And it is my personal belief in many sessions when people talk about Atmanirbhar, I always say that Atmanirbhar is the first step, because at first we may make something by reverse engineering or copying a foreign design, but that's not where we need to stop. That's only the first step. And once we are able to make something which is comparable in quality and price to what is available globally, there is no reason why we cannot take it to the rest of the world and make sure that not only do we reduce the percentage of toys domestically being consumed by ourselves as a percentage of the total market, but this can be the stepping stone for taking us forward. I'm sure many of the incentive schemes and the interest being taken by both the ministries will make that happen quite soon. But like all things, I'm sure you would want to hear what the industry itself feels. What do the practitioners feel? How has this helped them? What are the ways they can suggest for you to further assist them? So with that, we have two panelists. We have Mr. Sneh Vaswani, co-founder and CEO of Miko, which is a very, very interesting robot, which is great for children from about the age of 5 upwards. He's leading a dynamic global team at Miko. It's transforming the way kids gain knowledge through internet, through IoT, robotics, and conversation-based learning, becoming comfortable with technology and interactions, which in the time to come will enable them to be active participants in the digital economy, which we are all working towards. The other panelist, Mr. Tushar Amin, co-founder of Smartivity Labs. They're making not only active toys, but also passive toys, if I may call them that, or educational aids, which will help children to develop their thinking in mathematical, scientific, and social ways. He's a creative entrepreneurial leader with over 20 years of hands-on cross-functional expertise in conceptualizing such toys, designing them, building them, and successfully running innovations and products across the markets which actually come into fruition. So with that, I would first come to Mr. Sneh Vaswani, and please, you heard what Madam Arora and Dr. Rajendra Kumar had to say. Please tell us what are your views on how the toy industry, and particularly the intelligent toy industry with virtual reality and electronics as key elements, can be taken forward in India. Over to you, Mr. Vaswani.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for calling me here, and it was great hearing to Dr. Kumar and Madam Alka Aroraji. So when we started in 2015, and typically we've been observing the toy industry globally and in India for the past 6 years. As you must be aware, when we started at that point of time, we realized that there was not a single electronic toy manufacturer in India, to be honest. And we saw that all the MSMEs were into mechanical toys. We saw that 50% of toys being consumed in India were electronic toys. They were coming from our larger neighbors. And we went to almost 20 of them, and we said that we will give you electronic components which you can embed into your mechanical toys and make them electronic toys. There was a mindset challenge that they said, we are getting 40-50 crores of revenue every year. We are happy doing that. I told them the business is growing faster, and there will be a point that 50% electronics may become 80%. So you need to get into that to sustain yourselves. So I think the biggest challenge that we saw is we should not, when there was a mindset issue, it becomes a very difficult aspect to change someone to become an electronic manufacturer if he's a non-electronic manufacturer today. Today our product is a lot more complex than a typical smartphone, and what we typically did is, under the vision of Honorable Prime Minister, we've been able to start manufacturing it into India now slowly. And what we've done is MIT has put in a lot of efforts to open up the ecosystem for smartphones and tablet manufacturing. It started with assembly and now component manufacturing. They're putting a lot of efforts. We are approaching them with local demand also for smartphones is typically very high. So we approach them and say that, hey, this is a product which is not your conventional smartphone. And now basically be able to, you can manufacture it as a parallel vertical into your own business. You have all the manufacturing capabilities that you require for a smartphone, tablet, and so on. You can do assembling, electronic assembly very well to the tunes, 4-layer, 6-layer, and so on. And we need to manufacture this at scale and export it to X number of countries. And we saw a lot of acceptance from regular smartphone, automotive, and different other verticals who do not have prior expertise into toys. We gave them all the background on the certifications required. Initially, for the first 3-4 years, we were working with the larger partners, larger neighbors nearby. Now we also have understood the entire certifications required when you're shipping to Europe, when you're shipping to the US, and we've been able to work together with them and get our products coming out along with them. So the first point would be that if an existing manufacturer understands automotive or consumer electronics, get them to understand your toy segment and get them to understand the child segment, and so that they start working in that, because they do not need to do capex investments. They need to build knowledge assets towards how to go about that market, and they can build up that vertical from there. I think most important part is for a company like us, like for entrepreneurs who are starting, the more innovation you have in your product, the cost of that product can go higher. And when the cost of the product can go higher, you may not have the volumes to start with. You're not selling something for $20 in the international market. Your product, like our products, go for $300. And at $300, it's no longer a toy per se. It can compete with a tablet, for example. So at that time, your volumes may not be higher. We did this in 2015, and we spoke to all the smartphone guys. They told us that we need minimum 100,000 units commitment or 1 million units commitment, which we cannot as a startup at a seed stage afford to give. Over a period of time, we built the distribution, we built the brand in international markets. Now we have a demand of 100,000, few 100,000, a million units, that we can go to a smartphone manufacturer and say that, hey, you're making a smartphone for 1 million units. Why don't you make this parallel product? So I think companies need to focus on the innovation, getting the innovation play right, build your market in the early stages. Once you build your market, you will be able to align the right manufacturer to work with you and build up the electronic toy or electronic gadget ecosystem for kids also. So I think that's how the sequence should evolve.
Thank you. I think you outlined in a very good and concise way what can be gained by people who are already in electronics to start thinking actively of toys, and don't think of a $5, $10, $20 toy, but realize that a sophisticated toy can be in the same price range as a more sophisticated piece of equipment, and also being unique. I think it has many advantages should you go to the international market, as you seem to have done. So that's wonderful. We'll come back to you. Now, I'd like to ask Mr. Tushar Amin, what challenges does he see? You've talked about some of the hardware side challenges. What are the challenges in the virtual reality and artificial intelligence area that need to be addressed while thinking of smart toys, electronic toys going forward?
Thank you, everyone, firstly for inviting me, and thank you, Alkama and Rajendra sir and Ashok sir, for setting up this whole scenario for us to kind of extend upon. Primarily, what Mr. Vaswani spoke about is related to electronics manufacturing, but that is completely separate from augmented reality, virtual reality element of toys and gaming. For augmented reality or virtual reality, you typically do not need any electronic manufacturing per se. You need technology development. So primarily, as in your introduction you said, Smartivity is into building physical toys for kids. Very few know that we were also the pioneers of augmented reality and virtual reality products for children in India. We launched our first augmented reality activities for kids in 2016, January. We almost a year before Disney itself even launched its products globally. We have a patented algorithm that we developed in-house where you can recognize colors on a sheet that a child has colored, and you can have, if a child has painted a pink dinosaur, a child gets to see a pink dinosaur on the phone and interact with it and learn about a dinosaur. So at the very base, electronics is a hugely different industry than augmented reality and virtual reality. Whereas in electronics, there's manufacturing as well as technology involved. With augmented reality and virtual reality, your electronics components part is taken care by the devices that you have, primarily a smartphone, or if you're going for a high-end usage, a headset that actually gives you VR experience. For us, we kind of see ourselves as a company that makes activities for smarter learning. We have a strong pedagogical focus, as Alka ma'am suggested. We are dedicated to introducing kids to STEAM learning, science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. And it was as part of our exploration to kind of introduce learning to younger kids. We had physical products for older kids, 6 and above, but we wanted to also look at 3 to 6 year olds. And that's where we kind of arrived at augmented reality as a technology. What augmented reality does is it adds a layer of digital content on top of a physical content that we already have. So what we did was we took an already established industry, that is coloring sheets and puzzles, which is a huge component of the children's 0 to 6 age group toys or activities. And we decided that we will redefine this by adding a layer of augmented reality to it. So usually a parent goes through around 100 sheets in 2 to 3 months time of coloring when the child is between 3 to 5 years age. That is a use and throw model. You color something, you throw it, or at the most something is really good, you put it on the refrigerator. We thought, why not extend the engagement and also give some learning, because the biggest advantage of technologies such as augmented reality, virtual reality, and to some extent what Rajendra sir was saying, machine learning, computer vision, artificial intelligence, is that you can deliver content to someone who till now did not have access to this content. So it democratizes knowledge, it democratizes information, and it democratizes play. So, for us, that was one big motivation that we could, like a Nico robot is $300 as Sneha said, but our coloring sheets, 10 coloring sheets that we sell are 249 rupees. So for that, you don't need to spend a lot of money. We just had to kind of use innovation, that is the basis, to create this algorithm, to create this app. And now in 249 rupees, you can actually have physical activity, which is coloring something or solving a jigsaw puzzle. You can also learn about that character as to what that dinosaur is, or where did it live, what did it eat. All that information can be loaded into the digital content part of it. And then you can add fun element where you can have games that can be played with that character on 3D. So it kind of addresses the 3 needs that are there: education, entertainment, and engagement, constructive engagement. The challenges that we faced when we kind of launched this product was the lack of information or lack of basic understanding of a technology. So in the first 3 months, we sold around 5,000 sets, and our app download was around 50. So they were just bought as expensive coloring sheets, and people were not kind of aware that there's something called augmented reality. So they did not download the app, did not scan the sheet, and did not kind of were not able to give the benefit of the technology to the children. What changed the game for us was we kind of took a different approach. We saw that, okay, this is educational, why not tie up with some educational channel and integrate these in the curriculum of that particular channel. So we tied up with Asia's largest chain of preschools. Over the next 4 years, today we are reaching around 200,000 children per year with our digital augmented reality products. For virtual reality, the same approach that we took was that we learned from our first experience of augmented reality, and instead of no one wants to pay for digital content anywhere, so we tied up with one of our investors, SCHA, and we created around 200 modules of virtual reality content that children can learn. So if today when you're learning the structure of a cell, you actually read a book. The most advanced level you can go to is you can see a video where things are kind of laid out in a 3D animation. In our content, you can actually be inside a cell. So you have a Google Cardboard kind of design. You slip your smartphone into it. Once you put on that cardboard on your eyes, you are inside the cell. And then you can actually look at the nucleus, you stare at it for 4 seconds and you're inside the nucleus. And the voiceover tells you that, okay, this is what the nucleus is, this is what the function of the nucleus is, this is where mitochondria is, and this is how energy is generated in the mitochondria. So for a lot of toy companies, AR, VR is looked at as gimmick, and that might not last long as long as there is value addition. An audience might not pay for additional feature. So for us, these are the value additions that happen. We kind of encourage exploration, we encourage discovery, we encourage learning, we give information, you have assessment inside the module itself, so you can have multiple choice questions. You build in interactivity, you elevate the physical experience. What was till now restricted to Kagaz, kitab kind of thing, you can actually make something that is really engaging, entertaining, and educating for a child. And that is something that kind of is the potential of the medium. The hurdle is that there is a huge lack of awareness of something like this being available. So, so for that, couple of hurdles we faced was we have a patented algorithm, but protection of patent is something that is very low in our country at least. Second is partnership with schools is where these kind of technologies can have maximum impact. So even if it's a toy, if it is kind of taken through a channel that informs or educates, that might be a right approach to kind of roll out these technologies, make it familiar to the audience, and then value-added products can be introduced on this space.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amin. I think you've touched upon something which most MSMEs stumble on, which is how to take your brilliant idea and excellent product to a wider market, for which you need a proper marketing channel and a reach out to the correct target audience, which you have correctly identified as schools, and they can help you leverage the market access which you can do, but also the deeper interaction which comes through virtual reality, which cannot come through simply flipping through a book or even opening a laptop page and Googling something. I think that is really a much deeper interest, and I've got a wide variety of products to cater to different types of interests and inclinations of different children. Each child has his own interest areas, his own ways of tackling things, and you have created a very wide portfolio of products which I'm sure address many of that. Coming back to Mr. Vaswani, now you mentioned, and Dr. Kumar touched on it, that there is a need to have certain volumes. And he mentioned components manufactured, and I think you also mentioned that. Now, that is one thing, but how can that be promoted in India, given the volumes? Because I think you yourself have said that the volumes are nowhere near the kind of volumes which other smart devices have a couple of 100,000. I'm sure your toys are much smaller volumes. So how would you talk to the government and say that this is still worth investing in? Help us to make this, because this is something which we need. And how would you show them that the market should not only be measured by what is consumed in India, but the potential globally, should they come forward and assist you in this?
So I think the journey of building the market lies on the entrepreneur first and foremost. I think we as a country tend to put a lot of things that the government should help us in this and government should help us in that. But I've seen a lot of my close friends get into IAS, and I know that life on the other side can get equally tough. So I think what we typically did is that we built a market in not only in one country, but today we have users from 140 countries using the product, and that has been built over the past 2 years, step by step. Typically now, I would not say 100,000 for us is a small volume. We got to 100,000 right now, and we'll be getting to almost a million units 2 years down the line by increasing distribution more and more and getting in comparison to a regular smart device that would be there. Now, I think now is a time where the validation has come in. The product has got validated, the global brand coming out of India gets built up, and then it becomes very easy to align multiple stakeholders, be it the government, be it the MSMEs, be it different sectors, and all of them to come together to help the company to take it from X to 10X level. So I think the first step for any company, has to be done by them. Build the first brick yourself and prove a point that yes, there is merit in it, because the ideas are times are many, but you need to prove the concept, and that's the risk that we all take, and we take up lunch in the entrepreneurial world. Once that has been validated, and I'll be very honest, I wish Dr. Kumar was on this call. I've been in interactions with Mighty and with other verticals of the government. I've had some amazing experience with each one of them, how quickly challenges are resolved from the government side. You bring it up to one portal and pivot into one vertical, and they're there to help you out, hear you out. Like I just had simply walked into Mighty one day, and BIS, there was one. This was 2 years back. There was a matter, and we got immediate resolution for our concerns within 2 days itself. I think I think overall the sentiment is that like that day I realized that rather than blaming the government to do something, it is better that validate it. It will be hard once you get your validation. I think government, stakeholders, manufacturers, suppliers, everyone will be aligned to the cause that you are after. So that should not be a challenge.
Thank you very much. Mr. Amin, how about you? What would you like to ask from the government to help you take your successful model to an even larger scale?
No, absolutely. I agree with Sneh. The government is not in the business of rollouts. Government has set up channels to resolve anything that you need. But the onus of making something successful is entirely on the entrepreneur and their team. Most of the times, government's help is a bonus, but you cannot really blame government for any of the issues that you face during your entrepreneurial journey. And for us, each of the steps whether we want to showcase our products internationally, today we are in around 50 countries, whether it is getting all the certifications in place, whether it is getting a good laboratory to test our products, Startup India, Make in India, all of these institutions have been a huge help. But there should be an expectation that government will solve your problem. I completely agree with you. That is not an entrepreneur's way of working upon. Then you are not an entrepreneur. If you're like waiting for someone to solve your problem. You find a problem, you solve it. You want to scale, you approach government. And if your product is good, if there's value, if your pricing is right, if your channels are right, you will get all the help.
Thank you. I'm sure words from both of you are music to words of Madam Alka Arora. It's certainly something in sync with what we in CII always believe, that don't always ask the government what you can do. Present them with a plan which makes sense as an investor. The government's role is to act as an investor. If there's a good scheme which is getting stuck somewhere, as a facilitator in removing obstacles and helping and enabling you to grow. So, madam, here are two very good growth stories, lots more potential in them, lots of work for you to do, encouraging, but at the same time, a lot more responsibility. I come back to you, having heard these and the earlier discussion. How would you like to wrap up this session with the way going forward in this subject of toys?
So it's always lovely to hear, the success stories of the entrepreneurs, and it makes you believe in the system and the capability of our youngsters who have thoughts and, are finally giving them a shape. So I congratulate both of them that, they've been doing such wonderful work. And, wherever I go, I always, invite people that, one entrepreneur, if you become like a guide and a mentor, you will have 100 people, when they listen to your success story, more than any government schemes or more than any of us government officers, because at the end of the day, we take a monthly paycheck home, whereas, you have struggled to be where you are, and you are, ultimately giving this thing to your dreams, so basically, let's take this forward, and we will be doing a lot of sessions on mentoring and hand holding the MSMEs, because many of the MSMEs, while this journey of the toy fair was happening, many of them had never photographed any of the product they had. And when we initially told them that, you need to select 10 products, many of the very small ones just had 10 products. So it's a long way, for many of the micro units, but I'm proud to say that from many of we have 2 cluster schemes in our ministry for the bigger clusters and the smaller clusters under Spurti. So we have had a round of meeting with all the states which our secretary had shared. And you'll be happy to know that nearly 450 participants were there, from all the principal secretaries and the directors of the various institutions at the district level. So we have already started receiving offers on the toy clusters, which need the government assistance. And when we are doing this, we are also planning to look into the marketing avenues, because that is where the main, you can make the produce, but it needs a market. And also we've been working very closely with DPIT to look at the e-marketing platforms. So a lot's happening, and yes, it's very encouraging that in the AR and VR space also so much is happening. So our technology centers are there, and whenever I think we need some thoughts and this thing to be discussed, we've also started incidentally working with NIT very closely for the design, because that is another area which really needs a lot of care. So I wish the Toy Fair all the best, and thank you for having me on this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, for joining this. Thank you also, Mr. Tushar Amin and Sneha Vaswani, for joining. I think it's been very, very inspiring to hear the journey both of you had and the success which you had, which although madam briefly touched upon micro industries, I'm sure that there's a trickle-down effect, because you cannot be making everything yourself. Your forte is conceptualizing, designing, and conceiving something. And a lot of what you're doing would be sourced from micro and small enterprises, which would be supporting you as the base of your growth pyramid. And that is really something also which is very, very good, because toys are something which will both showcase our success domestically and hopefully internationally with the kind of success which both your companies have had. Thank you very much for taking time out to join us. And we in CII would also share with you the experience you had with the government being extremely responsive should you go to them with something which is realistic and reasonable. And we look forward to continuing support from the Ministry of MSME for that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session.